Now let's suppose we have these solar power stations. We're building them, we found the money. Well, heck, where are we going to get the material from? You know, Earth is running low on all sorts of resources. How are we going to build 100 power stations up there, along with all the spaceships it takes and all the fuel it takes and so on? Well, for one thing, as far as material is concerned, we've got a beautiful piece of real estate up there in the moon. The moon is 1/81st the mass of the entire Earth, and it's only there 237,000 miles away. You say, listen, that's a long distance. No, it isn't. It's 3 days away. It's 3 days away. We have sent so far, let's see now, 15 people to the moon. 12 made it, 3 didn't, but every single one of them got back. You can't get safety records like that almost anywhere. And that even though they rode on ships, which were the best you could build with the lowest bidders. And now, Columbus, he did something. That was difficult. I don't want to run down the astronauts. Believe me, you couldn't even get me on an airplane. But nevertheless, the fact remains, if I had my choice, I'd rather go with Neil Armstrong than with Christopher Columbus. Columbus had 3 ships that were salvaged on the point of sinking. Any storm would have sunk them. Any storm. In fact, coming back, a storm did sink the Santa Maria. But going there, he hit the only 7-week stretch in the history of the North Atlantic without a storm. What's more, he didn't know where he was going. He thought he was going to Asia. He didn't make it, frankly. And as for the crew, they didn't know anything about where they were going. There was nothing with the heck. You go to the moon, you've got it easy. You drive to the top of the atmosphere, look around, there's the moon. You aim at it. And furthermore, if you're going to the moon, you knew for sure that there weren't going to be any hostile natives there. So on the whole, going to the moon is easy. In terms of our technology today, it's much easier than Columbus's trip to America. So we go there and we set it up as a mining station. We can get everything from the moon that we need except carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, and that Earth will supply for a while. Of course, lots of people are horrified. They say, gee, we've been mucking up the Earth, now we're going to go there and muck up the moon too. And my answer is, why not? The moon doesn't belong to anybody. There is no life on the moon of any kind. There aren't even any germs to give you concern over, bacterial rights. Now, there are 2 things that concern us on Earth. One is that the moon looks pretty, and you don't want it moth-eaten. Fortunately, Providence in its infinite wisdom has decreed that the moon present one face only to the Earth at all times. I have a feeling I've been neglecting you people. And this means that we can work on the other side where no one standing on Earth will ever see the moth-eatenness. The other fact is that the moon, thanks to its mass, does create the tides. And if we reduce the mass, we reduce the tides. And we might not like this, but I assure you that all our fooling around on the surface of the moon and digging up ore, etc., is going to take thousands of years before we make the slightest perceptible diminution of its mass. So I think we can use the moon fine. And of course, it's not going to be useful to commute to outer space and to the moon in order to build the space power stations. Very expensive to send people up at 8 a.m. and bring them down at 5 p.m. What you really need are space colonies, space settlements. You'll have people living in space settlements and they'll be doing the work. Of course, it'll be interesting that as they do the work, other space settlements, other power stations, they'll be quickly returning profits on the initial investment. Not only will the expense be far less than that which is produced by the competing military establishments, but whereas the competing military establishments never return a profit, these space activities will in the form of energy eventually. And in the space of a few decades, we'll be getting far more back in the way of energy than we ever spent building them. In fact, we can build all kinds of things in space. One advantage space has is there's lots of room there. We can transfer observatories into space, we can transfer laboratories into space, we can transfer industries into space where they can take advantage of hard vacuum, of high and low temperatures, of hard radiation, of gravity-free conditions. All sorts of things will make it possible for them to produce all kinds of industrial, cybernetic, etc., gimcracks, tools, devices, that either can't be formed on Earth at all, or only with the greatest difficulty. In fact, space may be the Japan of the 21st century. Furthermore, if we get as much of our industrial establishment into space as possible, why, we'll get rid of the side effects of industry. Lots of people who don't like what the Industrial Revolution has done to man. They make use of all its advantages, but they don't like its disadvantages. And they would like to get rid of our industrial society, provided they can think of some way of doing it without losing their firm grip on the advantages. You know, it's these people who denounce the automobile and strum away on their electric guitars anti-automobile songs. So I say, if you get industry into space, you are in a sense getting rid of at least some of the disadvantages of our industrial civilization and saving its advantages. They're not far away, only a few thousand miles, but all their waste matter, all their pollution, all their noise, all their whatever you don't want is up there. You don't even have to send many people up there, because undoubtedly if civilization continues, they'll be automated and computerized to a fare thee well. And with everything up in space, none of it actually belongs to any particular spot on Earth. It would pay everybody on Earth to contribute all they can. Even if a small nation can only contribute paper clips, let them contribute all they can to the establishment of the space economy, and it would encourage international cooperation to the point where it would be the equivalent of a world government. World government has a bad press. Nobody wants a world government.